My name is Hubert Bennett, and I am one of the SLDS trainers for the Georgia Department of Education. Today's session will be IIS Data Analysis Tool. I hope that you have logged into your student information system. If you haven't, please do so now. If you do not have access to the admin dashboard within your student information system, you can open up a browser and type in this URL. That is goo.gl/e 2 capital N 7 capital B lowercase I. It is case sensitive. During this session, I hope you are familiar with SLDS. If not, I suggest you stop this recording and watch some of the other SLDS sessions. This session will understand that you have a working knowledge of SLDS. Also, later in this presentation, you will be asked to complete an electronic sign-in. This even relates to those of you watching the recorded version. This will be your ticket out the door, so to speak. We will use that contact information to send you a certificate of attendance. You can share that certificate with your administration in case you need proof of attending. At this time, I will switch my screen over to the SLDS. As you can see on my screen, I have many icons across the top. My icons will look different than yours unless, of course, you have logged into our Dundee School Systems admin dashboard. We will not go over any of these other items. We will go directly to the IIS Dashboard. When you first click on this icon, it may take a few seconds for the application to open. And many of you probably are wondering, well, your screen doesn't look like my screen since I have all these beautiful, colorful charts on here. Brand new users will not have access to any of these reports because these are your reports. These are your queries that you have created. Since you are new to the IIS tool, then you will not have saved any of these queries unless someone at your school or someone at your district shared some or published some charts or queries to the wall. At this time, what I'd like for you to do is to go to My Wall, slide down to Assessments. You'll see a number of assessments come out. You can do the IIS tool with all of these assessments. You can even do queries on growth model, and this is the student's growth model, not teacher. It's not associated to teacher. It's not the green bubbles. This is the student growth percentile of students. Then you have attendance. You can actually do queries on attendance. Right now, you cannot combine these features. You cannot combine attendance with assessment. That is something we hope somewhere in the future that may be possible. I'm going to go back up to assessment. I'm going to select EOG. If you're a high school, you probably wish to pull up EOC. But district level and elementary, middle school, EOG would be sufficient. When you click on that screen, don't be alarmed. Your screen doesn't change much unless you have charts. I have just filtered my chart table, my wall, to being the option that I chose here. To get the IIS tool to work, I must move over here to the Explore IIS Data tool. Please click on that. Once you click on that, it may take a few seconds for the application to actually open, but by default it will always return this display. This is the default display. Now, before you go to playing, and believe me, I already have several exercises designed for you to play hands-on during this session, but now I would like for you to just listen while I work through the layout of this screen. In addition, before I do that, let me just point your attention to the help and training link inside of the IIS. Now, just to remind you, there is a help and training directly inside of SLDS, and will take you to a similar page, but inside of IIS, if you click on the help and training, it will take you to a specific IIS page. You can click on this PDF, this user guide. In addition, you can actually request face-to-face training by this link, but you can click on this PDF, this user guide, and up will open this extensive user guide for IIS. It's almost 40 pages long. That may be helpful as you learn more and more about the IIS data tool. Back to the layout of this screen. One of the biggest items that you will notice, you will see here in the left-hand side, you'll see this quadrant of data. These are dimensions. This is what's referred to as dimensions inside of the user guide. You have a filter area. These are data elements that you can actually filter by. You have column area, which relates to the columns on the grid, column area. And then you have the row area, which relate to the rows on the grid. The data area is a place where you cannot do anything. This is where we make all the joins and create all the relationships between the various data elements. That is the quadrants, the dimensions on the left-hand side. In the header area of the IIS dashboard, you see the green button that says category. This just reminds you which assessment you're in at the moment or which category of data you're on. I can click on the green button and return to my wall. This time I'm not going to do that, but we will do that in a little bit. This first, the blue button here, as I click it, you will notice the quadrant disappears. I click it once again, and the quadrant returns. This is designed so that if you wanted more space on the screen, you would be able to remove the quadrant. All the filters are still in place, but it would just give you more screen space. In addition, some of you noticed the chart at the bottom of the screen. I actually have 5 different charts that I could choose. If I wanted to choose bar chart, I could choose that, and this chart comes up. Please be cautious about the charts. As you produce more and more data elements in the grid, this chart becomes much more defined, and what I like to refer to as it gets real ugly as you put more data elements plotted on the grid. So just be cautious of that. The next item is summary type. Currently, it is set to count, and that is the default. So the grid is counting not students, but the number of assessments. For example, this 366 on my grid under beginning learner, 3rd grade, that is not 366 students, but that is 366 assessments that I have on my query that were beginning learner. For example, Johnny could have had 4 of them, whereas Sarah Beth had none of them. So it doesn't count students, it is counting the number of assessments. The next option in the summary type is % by row. And as you can see, this looks more similar to how we typically look at assessment data. This is 16% of beginning learners, 40% developing learners, 32% proficient learner, 11% for distinguished learner, for a total of all of those combined would be 100%. So the data is looking across the row. Now, you can also do this by column. Notice when I switch on the column, my numbers have completely changed, because now instead of just third grades across the board, I am actually looking at columns going this way. There is no right or wrong way to display your data. Just let me caution you. I encourage you to think about how the normal, regular person out here would look at your data. Since this data is normally looked going this way, if I do this by column, it's 100% correct. However, the data might be misconstrued by somebody that would think they are supposed to read it going this way. I have had people ask, well, what good is this? Since you are the one creating or deciding what's going to be in your columns or in your rows, we need to have this option there so that you can arrange it however you like. But even in this example, this would be a perfect way for me as a district user to see, of all the beginning learners in my district, the highest concentration of beginning learners was in 6th grade. 21% of all the beginning learner assessments were in the 6th grade. Conversely, I can look at just distinguished learner, and the highest concentration of distinguished learner assessments were in last year's 7th grade with 21.47%, and the next highest would be the incoming 3rd graders, which is very unusual, of 20.66%. So this is now looking at it down the column. Okay, I'm going to switch this back to count just so that we know where that is at. Throughout your time playing in SLDS, and again, I am just describing this layout for you, you will be working in here and you will oftentimes forget what kind of filters you have on. So we have a Show Filters button. When you click on it, it will show you what type of filters you will have. This will come in handy when you look at the exercises that we will be showing you. Please do not confuse these two buttons, the Show Filters and the Reset Filters. Reset Filters, unfortunately, it does not have a "Are you sure?" When you click on Reset Filter, it will wipe out everything you have done, and it will start over with this default screen. It would be a shame for you to have worked 10 or 15 minutes tweaking and fine-tuning your data grid only to click Reset Filter by mistake, and all your hard work would be wiped away. We'll discuss that more later, because you will be using this button and this button several times throughout this exercise. Earlier, I mentioned to you about your wall. This is the button. This is actually your save button. The only way to save an IIS query is to publish it to your wall. When you click on Publish to your wall, a box pops open, and you have to put in a title. You should put in a description, but let me say, Be very, very explicit in your title. That's enough said for now, but I will readdress that in a little while when we begin saving. By default, it will accept whatever category of assessment you have here, but because inside the IIS you can always change this, it is suggested that you always look at this and make sure that it is looking at the right category. This helps filtering on your wall when you first come into the IIS dashboard. Currently, you have 3 options of where you can publish this query to. Since I'm coming at the district wall, I have these 3. If I'm school, then just replace the word district for school. I have the ability to publish to my wall. Only I can see it. I also have an option to publish it to my district wall. Anyone at district level access would be able to see my query that I just created and published to my district wall. Schools could not see that, but my district level people can. I also have an option to do it both. Publish it to my wall and to my district wall. That way it would show up whether I did a filter by my wall or my district wall. It has been requested that district level people could choose to publish this also to a school wall. We really see the value where a district level person could create a query, push it out to the schools, and then the schools could see that data as it lays into that grid that was created at the district level. To finalize the publish, you hit save, and that will push that chart, that grid, to your wall. This is the only save button inside of here. So if you're working for 10 minutes on something and you get a phone call or you have to leave your desk, if you do not come through publish to my wall, then your work will be lost. I don't have anything now worth publishing, so I'm going to just skip over that. We will come back to that towards the end of the session. I have the ability to export this screen. Now notice I didn't say the data. I'm exporting the screen. I can choose between Excel or PDF. Once I choose the option, I hit the green button and it will push this screen out to Excel or to PDF. One of the interesting features of IIS and gets a lot of attention is this Get Like Mine. When I click on Get Like Mine, I have several options across the top. I can choose the variables that I wish to find other districts or school systems similar to mine based on this criteria. I could choose whether all gender or whether it be just males. I could choose any ethnicity or race. I could leave it as all. I could do ED, yes or no, EL, yes or no, gifted, yes or no. So I am actually setting the parameters as to which districts I wish to find that are similar percentage-wise to these items. We do understand that these are limited. I don't have the ability to choose multiple subgroups. And oftentimes, this may come back and show you something that really is nothing close to what your district is. For example, you may have, you may be compared to, say, a Gwinnett County with the 170,000 plus students there. You may not wish to compare yourself to Gwinnett County solely because of the size. Or in retrospect, you may be compared to Taliaferro County, which has less than a couple of hundred students. You may not wish to compare yourself to them solely because of enrollment numbers. but this is here just for a tool. Your district will always be in the middle. The tool will show you 3 that's slightly above and 3 slightly below you from a percentage basis. The only reason you would not be in the middle is if you were in the bottom third or the top third in the state. Now, since I changed this and went to the Get Like Mine feature, my matrix, my grid changed. So I am going to reset my filter so that it comes back to my default screen. Now, the last couple of little buttons I want to show you are these 2 blue bubbles here. If I click on one bubble, you'll notice the chart no longer exists. If I click the bubble again, the chart returns. If I click the second bubble, the grid disappears and only the chart. Again, this, just like the other bubble on this side, is designed to allow you to manage your landscape or your screen size so that you can put more or less data on the screen. That finishes the layout information, so let's kind of talk a little bit. Hopefully you have your SLDS open and your IIS tool open. If not, definitely jump there now. What I'm hoping you find is that you may be curious, well, some of my bubbles here in the dimensions or even inside of the grid, some of them are yellow, but most of them are blue bubbles. The difference, the distinguishing factor between the yellow and the blue is that yellow is indicating that there is a filter already on that data element. For example, I'm showing fiscal year now. You can see by default it comes to 2016. Let me remind you here, you can actually pull up CRCT data. CRCT data, the last year for CRCT data is 2014. So if you brought over CRCT data from the main wall, you're not going to see anything in your default screen because it will be looking for 2016 CRCT data. So one of the first things you would do is have to come in and select which years of CRCT data you would like to see. But getting back to the color of the bubbles, you see here that district already is yellow because it is filtered to your district. We will talk about this later, but you will see that you actually have access to all of the districts within the state. You can even drill down to different schools. So if you came into, all of my district names are fictitious. Yours would be real, but you would be able to drill down and see the actual schools inside of a district. So a school could compare themselves to another school or schools from some other districts around the state. Enough for that. Okay, are you ready to play? I hope so. Here's our first little example, so please watch me first, and then I will pause the screen and allow you time to watch, to practice doing what I am doing. The beauty of IIS, or one of the beauties there, is it's a drag and drop, quick, instant refresh. For example, if I was not looking at anything in relation to ethnicity, even though it comes up by default here, of course I don't see ethnicities listed here, but say I do not care what ethnicity the students are for this report. I can drag ethnicity back over to the filter area in the quadrant, the dimensions here in the quadrant. You notice filter area is no longer there. My numbers haven't changed because I do not have a filter. How do I know I do not have a filter on ethnicity? Because it is blue. It is a blue bubble. So all I did was clean up or reduce my grid. In best practices, I think it's always better to have this grid as clean as possible. You do not need to have any data elements here that you do not need to distinguish between that kind of data. You will understand that more as this goes. At this time, I'm going to pause the screen. What I would like for you to do is practice moving ethnicity back and forth. And I also would like for you to practice working with the count, the row total, and the column total. At this time, I'll pause the screen. Okay, it's time to come back into the SLDS. We will continue looking at some more. Since you have been playing with your IIS, now would be a good time to practice when you return to your screen to practice resetting the filter so that everything comes back. Now, just for demonstration, in case if you had difficulty performing the task that I just asked you to do, I'm going to show you, I'm going to move ethnicity back over to the filter area. It does not matter at what level I put ethnicity in over here. So that was the drag and drop, and of course playing with the columns and the percent by row. Now to reset my filters, I'm going to come back to a standard screen. Now I would like for you to see how to make filters, okay? And we're going to demonstrate in the exercise in just a minute. I will pause my screen and let you practice doing this. But I want to filter on, let's say, ethnicity. I can come to ethnicity here. You see I click on the bubble and I see all of the ethnicities that we have inside of SLDS. Ethnicities or race ethnicities changed, I think it was back in 2007 or 8 or something like that. And so that's why you'll see Asian and Asian Pacific. Some data will be marked as Asian, and some will be marked with the newer Asian or Pacific. So, you know, you may want to just kind of play with that as you go through here. Okay? But let's just say I want to put a filter on here and only see Hispanic. I click Hispanic, or the one that I want, or multiple ones that I want if I wanted to. I could do Hispanic and 2 or more, and click OK. You will notice my grid didn't change, but my numbers did. Okay? Let me switch this back to count. So you can see, because sometimes you can actually do it in percentages and the percentages do not change because percentages are the same even though the count is real low. Now, I just set the filter here, but you'll notice in my dimensions, ethnicity also turned yellow, which indicates I actually could have done the filters here. So on this side, I'm going to reset them back to show all, and the numbers return. Notice the filter item went back to blue, and the reason it's blue is because there are no filters applied to ethnicity. I am actually showing all. So I can do a filter here, or I can do a filter from the quadrants or from the dimension areas here. Okay? At this time, I will pause the screen again. And I want you to work on 2 things. You may want to jot these down. I want you to filter on only female and only American Indian. I will pause the screen. Okay, it's now time to come back. I hope you enjoyed playing, and who knows, maybe you even pursued some other items. Just to show you what the proper steps would be there, if I did gender, I did female, And please always remember you have to click OK. Sometimes your screen may look like this, and I have failed to actually scroll down and hit the OK button. Unless I hit the OK, my numbers will not change. I just filtered by female, and I want to filter by American Indian. So my numbers just changed. You may be wondering, well, why are there blanks here? That would indicate that there were no fourth grade beginning learner female American Indian assessments. Remember, this is not counting students, but it is counting assessments. Okay? So as you can see there, now you might be wondering, I forgot what all this is, so I can show filters. You will see that it's looking at 2016 female American Indian in my school district, all schools, and it is looking at milestones EOG, all subject areas. So that is my filters. So again, my ethnicity is now yellow, my gender is yellow. Now, I don't see gender here, which is perfectly understandable. I do not need an item here unless I want to see it, okay? I only want to, at best practice, I want to reduce my grid to the lowest data elements here that are necessary for my display. Great. Now I'm going to reset my filters. I'm going to pause my screen, and I want you to go into your IIS. You may need to reset your filters. Then I want you to work on this set of filters for me. Depending on what grade level you are, I want you to only do the grade level that applies to your situation. If you're in a primary school that goes up to grade 3, I want you to filter to grade 3, elementary to grade 5, middle to grade 8, high school grade 9. I want the filters to also include female only and students with disabilities only. And the final piece of this, I want you to reduce the grid to the fewest items necessary. Okay, time to come back. I am resetting my screen, and I want to walk you through the appropriate steps. I'm going to reset my filters. Even though mine was at the default, I'm going to reset my filters. I am going to pretend that I am a middle school. So I am going to go to 8th grade. I want to do female only. Notice how I had to slide down. Special ed students, that falls under the SWD, students with disabilities. So I come in here, and I can do this however. I've got SWD checked, okay. That is the various things. I want to check my filters to make sure I have that. So fiscal year, female, students with disability, grade 8, and it's the districts. However, the last piece that I mentioned to you about wanted you to reduce the grid. I wanted you to cause this to be as small as possible. You may have wondered, what in the world did I really mean by that? In this example, I do not need ethnicity. I did nothing with ethnicity. I am not distinguishing between ethnicity, so I will drag ethnicity off of the matrix. In addition, for this particular example, I can reduce it a little more by taking grade level off. I don't need grade level showing here. I do know that this is specific to 8th grade. So even though I don't have grade on my rows, It is still filtered. So I am reducing my screen as much as possible, and I can have a very short screen here. This comes in handy when I am looking at various items. So now I can see the chart is looking like so. You notice, we haven't looked at these yet, but you notice there's plus signs. This is my drilling down capability. Since this is assessments and you see it showing milestones EOG and then subject, you notice there is no bubble beside subject. That means that, wait a minute, if I go from assessments, milestones, to the next item, that's where it's going to show me subjects. So the plus sign is how I drill down. So I click on the plus sign and there are my individual subjects. Unfortunately, we do not have domains inside of the IIS. I would love for us to have that, and who knows, somewhere down the road we might. But for now, we only go to the subject level. And that's by drilling down on the plus sign. Now, if you will notice, if I right-click on the plus, I can collapse, expand all, collapse all. So if I had a number of items here, I could say expand all, and it would expand all of them at the same time. However, collapse all will bring it back. Now, that shows through that query. Now, you may wonder, well, Hubert, I don't want all this here. I could actually have left ethnicity up here, and I could have actually drug achievement off, and then you would see the same totals, but this now would be broken down by ethnicities. Okay? So there's many different ways to look at this data. Now, one of the big features, we're going to pause for a moment about creating more queries. We will come back to that. We will get into some more extensive queries. But at this time, I would like to show you another feature, because some of the power here is like, who are these students? This is saying that this is 16 assessments that are in beginning that are that were black, not Hispanic. So I can click on those hyperlink numbers and it will bring up a data sheet of that information. So you see here, these are students that are black that are 8th grade based on the query that I have. You notice that this is Eileen. And notice that there are 4 tests here. 3 of them are beginning learner and 1 of them is developing learner. You see the subgroups here. Notice the student's name is hyperlinked, which means I can click on it and go to the student profile page. I'm having an issue there for now. So let me close that. I'm going to return to that screen. But you see the information, okay? Again, click on the student's name and I will go to the student profile page. We do have 5-step cheat sheets for that. But another big thing that principals love about IIS is that for the first time inside of SLDS, we have a report that you can pull up Lexile scores for your students. Nowhere else inside of SLDS, except from a teacher perspective or from each individual student, can you see the Lexile scores. So based on my query, I am able to see the Lexile scores for each of those students. One other powerful feature of the way we display this data, as you see on this screen, and of course I can always export that out to PDF and it looked just like this screen, but you'll notice this student has 4 assessments. Notice my export, clicking on the export button, I could export this out to CSV. It takes just a second to run. When I open CSV, and CSV is, and hold on one second, guys. I have to change my screen share. I need to share Excel. So hopefully now you should be seeing my Excel screen. Now you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, we saved it to CSV. CSV is comma separated values. By default, it normally will open up in Excel. The reason we put it in Excel is for various reasons. However, please let me draw your attention to, I'm going to just stretch these screens, the columns out here. Here are the 4 assessments for Elaine. Instead of having one row of Elaine showing all 4 of the tests out here to the right, we actually created in CSV as in 4 separate rows so that you can actually create filters based on this. Yes, you might think that's a lot of duplication. However, let me just quickly show you this cool little thing. I'm going to select the header row, select a filter, and now I can actually come over here and I can filter on just, say if all I wanted to do was math, now all I'm seeing is the math assessments for these particular students. Now, of course, I can actually do this over in IIS as well. However, sometimes it might be easier just to quickly display something like this. Again, you might say, well, but still, that doesn't explain why you get each row. Well, the thing is, if we know we have some students that may have only were beginning learner in 3 areas. So if we were doing them in columns, let me just kind of slide all the way over here. If we were doing columns, it might be ELA here, math here, and social studies. Well, the next student may have only done math and social studies. So you see that if you did any filtering on a column, you would not be able to get all of the maths together because those are in separate columns. So we had to find a way to put the scores and the subjects in the same column so that you could filter by. Now, I just mentioned scores. So you see here, you actually have the official score breakdown, not just a label saying beginning learner, but you actually have a score. So you could actually sort by scores, you could filter by scores, you could actually find the 10%, the lowest 10% in the developing learners, which may give you some indication of students that might need remediation because they just barely were outside of the beginning learner category. But you could do that with this kind of setup. So it would take you some playing around in Excel, but you can run that option. Okay? I'm going to close the Excel. I am not going to save. I have to go over and change what I am sharing screen with. Okay. Now we are back to the IIS, and again, we are at the matrix screen, okay? Or I'm sorry, the data report screen. Now, let me point something out to you. Depending on the size of your screen, computer screen, if you have a widescreen computer, what I'm about to say may be thinking, Hubert has lost his mind. On my screen and on what you're seeing, this is not a widescreen. So it's like, how do I go from this report back to my IIS tool? I don't see a go back button or anything like that. Here's what you have to do. So please watch my screen for just another second. On my report, I have to go up into this area where it's telling me my milestone and what my title of that report is. You notice how my cursor has turned into the grab tool or the 4 arrows. I'm going to left click. I'm going to hold it and drag over to the very far side of the report. You'll see an X. If you have a widescreen computer, that X may already be visible. However, please understand, you may go to another computer where that is not, and you may have to do this very thing on another computer. Okay, so I'm going to click the X. I am back to my data screen, to my IIS tool. Okay. So are we ready to play some more? All right, here's what I'd like for you to do. The next item, you may want to jot this down. I want to do the grade level again, 3rd, 5th, 8th, or 9th grade. This time I want it to be male students, black, special ed, only beginning learners in social studies. Now this has added some complexity to it, so I'm going to pause my screen. You can go into your IIS. I want you to look for the grade level, 3rd, 5th, 8th, or 9th, male, black, special ed, beginning learner, social study assessment only. I failed to remind you, you may need to reset your filters to begin over. And now I am sharing my screen again. So let me walk through that exercise with you. I have reset my filters. I'm doing grade level. Again, this time I'll do 5th grade. I'm going to do male. I'm going to do, I'll do ethnicity from here just to show you. I'm kind of jumping around some. Black. Special needs, SWD, remove the not SWD. Okay, achievement level, that's where the beginning learner comes in. So if I remove everything and then go to beginning learner, now remember, if you're looking at CRCT data or high school graduation data or in the course test data, the old EOCT stuff, you would have to do the did not meet, meets, exceeds categories, okay? Beginning learner. Now notice how my grid just dropped down to just beginning learner. And now here's the part that you may have caught you. Now I mentioned that I only wanted to be social studies. How in the world? I can't click on this subject. Now if I click on it, all it's doing is resorting it. Subject falls under assessment. So it's embedded in there. So when I click on assessment, milestones is down at the bottom. I click on the plus sign. Of course, it being the bottom one, notice how my elevator here went up some. So I have to scroll down a little bit more. I'm going to select only social studies. Now, guys, this kind of query was asked of me many, many, many times when I was at a school. So here it is. Now, do not be alarmed if you came up with nothing, because we have just created a very extensive query or complex query. You may not have had any students to fall into that category. Now, exactly what filters do we have? Go up to show filters. 2016, male, students with disability, grade 5, beginning learner, black students, milestones, social studies. Okay, so a very complex filter, and you see how quickly you were able to do that, and I was able to do that. So cool. Now, in my case, what I would do is I would clean up this screen. You might be a little confused when I say this, but see, even though I'm filtering on black in this example, I'm going to remove ethnicity. I'm also going to remove grade level. Okay? Now, I can click on the plus sign here, and it's going to be the same thing because I remember I had filtered by just social studies. So I am now down at the lowest level of grid that I could come up with. However, I could have always changed some things. You know, I could have always said, okay, well, I'm going to leave grade there, and I'm going to take off achievement. Okay? So whichever one I want to display. But now, here's where I was talking to you some 40 minutes ago about being explicit in your title. If I was creating a title for my query to put on my wall, I would definitely include something for this one that would include 5th grade black, so that I would know what that was, because if I shared this on my district wall, someone would open this up and they would have no clue what that was unless they went to show filters. Okay? All right. Now, I want to do something else with this in mind, and then we will play. Okay? This was for what year? You might be pondering and wondering, remember we have fiscal year here, so by default it comes to 2016. What if I wanted also to compare it to 2015? Okay, so if I do that, ooh, you see my number changed. But wait a minute, I don't see anything here. I don't see that. How do I know which was one year and which was the next? I hope you are now thinking, well, wait a minute, that's because I did not move fiscal year over to the grid. It is still in the filter area. So I could move this to either the column or the row, depending on how I wanted to look at this. I still don't see it. Anybody have an idea of what I need to do? If you're saying click on the plus sign, you're absolutely right. So I can see 2015, 2016. Simply by moving the fiscal year from the filter area to either the column, or I could have just as easily put it on the row, just depending on where I want that breakdown to be. Notice if I click on it, there's my 2015, 2016. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to pause the screen. I want you to play with yours for just a second about looking at the fiscal year. Okay? So if you will, reset your filter, do the same query I had, your grade level, whichever grade level is specific to you, male, black, students with disabilities, and I don't want you to do just beginning learner. I want you to just do social studies. Leave all achievement levels, so you will have beginning learners, developing learners, and so forth, just social studies, but I want you to include 2015 data as well. Okay, hope that was fun for you. Come on back and we will look at the data. I am turning back on the IIS tool. I am resetting my filters just to show you how quickly this can be done. I'm going to do 5th grade this time, 5th grade. I want to do black. I want to do male. Students with disabilities. And I only want social studies. So I wonder where the distinguished learner and so forth was. The reason they're not showing up is because I do not have any students in that category that fits that. Now, let me clean this up a little bit. I'm going to drag over ethnicity. I don't need grade level. Okay. I want fiscal year. I want to compare it to 2015 as well. Okay. And now I have it, and it's kind of funky, so I'm not seeing that. So I'm going to actually drop it here above achievement level so I can see 2015, 2016. Okay? Now, I'm going to tweak this a little bit more just to show you some examples here, okay? I'm actually going to bring grade level, grade, where's grade? Oh, there it is, at the very bottom. I'm going to bring it back into the row. I'm going to take off assessment. I'm actually going to take achievement off. So I now have just fiscal year. I would definitely need to be very explicit in my title here. Now, I could easily edit this query. I could come in here and say, I want 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. So now I am seeing the comparison. If I wanted it just to be with beginning learner, I could filter there. Now my numbers are only representing beginning learner. I'm going to show filters. And I'm actually going to come in here and I am going to select all of that. I am going to Control C or right click, okay? And then I'm going to publish this to my wall. While I still have this here, I'm going to go into the description and I'm going to Control V, which is paste. So I just dropped all of my filters actually in the description area here. So I now can put in the title, 5th, compare 2015 to 2016 social studies. Here are my filters on there. I can actually tidy that up some if I wanted to. You know, I could, you know, remove some spaces, whatever I wanted to do in there. But I just used the show filters to help me just put in a description. I hit save, and it just returns back to my matrix. However, if I go back to my screen, I'm going to just filter by order post by most recent posts. Okay, so here is my most recent one, the one that I just did. I am now back on my wall. Hopefully, you guys will do that. So whatever, I'm going to pause the screen, whatever you have on your IIS tool, if you will, publish it to your wall. Publish it to your wall. I hope that was fun. Now I'm going to reopen the screen. While we're on the wall, I am going to just show you a few things. If I had shared this with other folks, they actually could make comments. You would see comments posted here. They could even do a thumbs up. They liked it, so forth. The author of this, could actually click here and go in and edit this information. So you might want to change the title or change the filter or something. You could do that. You could actually remove this from your wall, and only you can, by simply checkbox and remove from wall. Or if I wanted to, I could, or if I wanted to make a comment, here's where I make a comment. But if I wanted to go back to this query, to this chart, I would click on this Explore Chart. So if I click on it, it will take me back to that exact same setup. And then if I wanted to, I could re-edit from here. I could add something more to it. I could take something away and then republish the new version to another chart. or if I didn't want to change anything, I am fine. I could always go return back to the wall simply by doing this. Again, let me point out to you that you do have the help and training link that takes you to the almost 40-page PDF of the training guide for this. We are about to end the screen, but please don't go anywhere yet. I need you to do your electronic signing. You will get credit and get the certificate of attendance. If you will, please open up an internet browser and type in the below URL. Just type in, and this is case sensitive, type in goo.gl/lowercase h, capital N, lowercase xm1q. That is a Q. That should take you to a sign-in form. If you have trouble getting that link to work, please send me an email directly, and I will send you the long version of the URL so that you can get credit for it. And this will make sure you do this, because we use this information to your contact information on the sign-in to send you that certificate of attendance. As I said earlier, you can share that certificate with your administration in case you need proof of attending. Near the bottom of the screen, you will see my email address and the email address for the SLDS team. If you have questions in regards to this specific webinar, please contact me. If you have more generic questions, please contact the SLDS email address. I want to thank you for participating with me. I hope you found this session beneficial. If you cannot attend the face-to-face training on other training modules, please participate in some of our other webinar training sessions. At this time, I will stop the recording.